Source Nation. Join us now for Family Mix Mondays with licensed professional counselor Jaketra Bryant. Tune in as Jaketra shows the different dynamics that make up family. Whether you represent the nuclear family, single parent, extended, grandparent, or blended family, Jaketra has tips and advice designed to strengthen your family structure. Source Nation, here is your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Well, good evening, Source Nation. I am your host, Jaketra Bryant, and you are listening to SRN Live Television with Family Mix Mondays. And we are starting a new series. And so this one should be pretty informative for our parents, as well as I'm sure we're going to get some teenagers and some other kids tuning in and wanting to know, like, what is this technology, cell phone talk all about? And so I myself am a person, I like to think that I am in tune with technology. Well, as of recently, I have learned that I am pretty outdated and there's a lot of things that I need to learn. And my little 10-year-old is forever showing me new things. And I thought I was up to date with some stuff. And so I think, like, as technology moves, and there's an area that we probably can't do anything about. I think it's just going to advance. It's going to get different and better with technology, from cell phones to computers to elevators to the usage of anything that involves our technology. And so I say, why not, like, get on and use it to our advantage when it comes to technology, communication, and parenting, and how we can use that together. And so before we join in with the conversation, or begin the conversation on just parenting and technology and cell phones and how to maintain that relationship, and I have a guest, Dr. Nekeshia Hammond, and her and I are going to be having a conversation. You might remember her from a talk about a few months ago that her and I had such an excellent conversation. She is so knowledgeable in the areas of parenting and ADHD and parenting and just the involvement. And so I'm going to read a little bit about her, and then she's going to come on and talk more about any new things she has going on. So Dr. Nekeshia Hammond is the TV host of Parenting Explained with Dr. Hammond, speaker, author, and owner of Hammond Psychology Associates. She consults with the media to increase public education about mental health issues. She has been featured on NBC, ABC, and CBS, as well as various magazines and radio throughout the country. And so we have Dr. Nekeshia Hammond. So hello, ma'am, and how are you this evening?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm so well. Thank you so much for agreeing to do another show. I'm sure we're going to keep this thing going. And so just tell Source Nation more about you and any new things you got going on now since we last spoke.
Yeah, the most exciting thing that I'm just elated about is my new television show, which is Parenting Explained with Dr. Hammond. So really working on getting the information out there to parents. The show is about mental health issues. It's about education issues. It's about financial issues. We had a financial guru last season, and it's currently on a couple of networks throughout the country, but people can also watch it at drhammondshow.com. For all the episodes. We have new ones coming out soon. So that's been really exciting, just to have a place to educate parents about what is going on and be as supportive as we can for parents, because we know sometimes the road is a little difficult. So we're trying to help with those challenges.
Yes, and congratulations. That's so exciting. I'm so excited for you. So many new things. That's what happens when you're blessing other people, then blessings got to come, and we got to look for more ways to keep on, like, reaching the masses amount.
Definitely. That is the goal. We're going to reach as many as possible.
Yes, so agree. So, okay, I know this is going to be a really, like, touchy type of subject, because we might sound as if we're going to cell phone bash, or might sound as if we're like, get the kids off of video games and off of the computer and off of the phones. Yeah. But we want to promote this balance.
Yes.
And so I want to just kind of hear your thoughts, like, initially, just about like parenting and technology, and just have you ever had the experience of having, like, a parent or a child say, "Oh my goodness, not my cell phone," or my mom just doesn't understand, like, because she's too old, or all the.
I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I'll share some of my my strongest thoughts, I guess. Number one, I always advise parents to start early. So I'm a mom of a 5-year-old. So honestly, when he was about 3 years old, we started setting up some boundaries with him because my son is the type that if he were able to watch TV all day and night and be on his tablet, he would. So we had to set up boundaries, and you can do that when they're younger, preschool, elementary school age, to say, hey, around this time, like for us, around dinner time, there's no electronics. There's no TV, no cell phone or anything like that. For the older teens, it's the same way. I mean, again, it's a little more difficult because teens have, their phones with them. It seems like glued to them 24/7. But at the same time, a lot of parents I've met, they will make sure that they're not in their bedrooms at night, because many teens are texting and talking and doing all sorts of things at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, when they should be sleeping and preparing for school the next day. So the first step really is to make sure that we're setting appropriate boundaries, no matter what the age of our child is.
Yeah, I agree. That's what my son, he's 10 now. And I remember him saying, Mom, when you gonna let me have a cell phone? And then here's my niece who's like 2 years younger. She's like, my mom said at 9. And so now we have these cousins that battle. And my son's looking at me like, hello. And then so he's thinking, well, I'm older, so why is her mom saying 9? I was like, no, there's so much that comes with cell phones. It is not just about like, let's talk to somebody. So I remember having to kind of just like tell her, like, and your mom probably shouldn't be getting you one. And so she was just like, oh.
And you know what? Actually, thankfully, some of the cell phone carriers are getting smarter, thank goodness, with certain cell phones. I think there's some now where you can only, make a phone call to, like, say 5 people that you program in the phone, and those sorts of really safe things. If you must have one in elementary school, I would definitely advise something like that, because again, with an 8-year-old, a cell phone that has access to the internet, they are exposed to way more things that they need to be exposed to at the age of 8. So I mean, there's so many apps. There's just so much out there.
Yeah, I agree. And that was what my argument was to my son. It was like, not that mom is never going to get you one, but there's a level of like maturity. And I was like, everyone who's on those video games and chat are not kids. And so he's like, well, no, they all say, they say that. I was like, they say that, but I was like, but they're not all kids. And so I was like, so therefore I have to get you to a place where you understand that, and you truly believe that, and you're looking more deeper into it, and not just kind of believing that everyone is a kid and everyone has these nice objectives. And so that was my reason.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about maturity. And that's absolutely right. I hear a lot, like a huge question is, at what age should my child, fill in the blank, get a cell phone? What age should they start playing these video games? What age, should they have social media? But the thing is, like you said, you really have to look at your child's maturity level. So for some children at 10, they are just ridiculously responsible, right? And then some for kids, it's really more 12 or 13 that you want to wait to that age. So you really have to see what is going on with your child. But you're absolutely right. There are so many predators. I completed the FBI Citizens Academy here in Tampa, and it was alarming and disturbing, frankly, as a person, the amount of victimization that is happening online. They have a whole division dedicated to going in because, like you said, kids are thinking, oh, it's another team to game with, and it's not, or someone chatting with them or whomever. And of course, we know as adults, there's a lot of predators out there posing as 13, 14, and 15-year-olds, but they're not. So it's very scary. It can be very scary.
Right. And I think that's the part, like when it comes to technology, that's why I was like, we are definitely not bashing, because technology is moving. It's moving. There's a new iPhone to a new Samsung Galaxy. There's a new one. So like, we cannot stop the move. But however, I do think that there's a level of education that we can have for our parents as to how to include themselves inside of the technology world, as well as maintain the interpersonal communication that we speak of as clinicians.
Right. And it really is, like you mentioned, with the communication, because there's so much cyberbullying that is going on right now due to cell phones and social media and that sort of thing. And one of two things is happening. A lot of kids are victims, right, of the cyberbullying, or some kids are the bully. online because they think there's a screen in front of them and they can say whatever they want, call people whatever name they want, say all sorts of atrocious things. It's horrible. If anyone ever has the time to read comments of what people say online, it's honestly atrocious. But we have to teach our kids how to behave in a social media world. Because like you said, social media is not going away. We're not going to not have cell phones, right, next month. But we need to, it's just as how we teach them how to behave in a classroom, we need to teach them how to behave online. And what I'm seeing is a lot of parents are forgetting that. We think it's the same, but it's not. It's not the same as sitting in front of someone in a classroom.
Yep, agree. I think that's the problem that I have the most concern with is there are some parents who are just like, especially with bullying, they're just like, well, we were bullied when we were younger or bullied when we were growing up and we just kind of got over. And I was like, girl, it's not the same.
Not the same
and
at
I was
all.
like, right. I was like, these kids are literally committing suicide from comments. And I was like, that never ever crossed my mind or a kid in my class. And I was like, so obviously there's something different happening. There's a different level of exposure happening that like, you can't just be like, oh, well, they just like beat the bully up that got on their nerves and they stopped. And I was like, no, girl, no, these kids take guns to school. Like, yes. And they take out the whole school. So I was like, no, it's different. And I was like, so you cannot like be like, well, we kind of got over it. We turned out fine. And I'm like, well, did we? Because I like, I beg to differ.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a very different time. I remember too, way back when I was in elementary and middle school. And like you said, I mean, people say things or, whatever, say inappropriate things or somebody's bullying someone. But the difference was you didn't have a device like a cell phone or social media where someone can literally all day long, 24/7 say these negative things to you. And what I've seen so much, especially for my poor middle schoolers, is that whatever their peers say to them, they think that it's true. And I've had like a million conversations with kids and I'm like, just because somebody else says it, it doesn't make it true. But they think that they really believe that. And I'm like, they said you were stupid, but you're in gifted classes. Like, you're not stupid. And they're like, yeah, but they said I was stupid. I'm like, you're not. You know what I mean? But they take it to heart. And when there's so many, but when someone's saying you're ugly, you're stupid, you're fat, you're this, you're that, calling them all sorts of derogatory names, when you hear that constantly all day and night and throughout the night, if you have your cell phone in your room, that is the reason why some of these kids are taking their lives. It's very difficult to deal with.
Yep. I mean, it's so much to look into. So I was like, since it's not moving, we need to like get the parents into having initial conversations. And that is why I told my son, I said, I'm going to look at you at maybe 13 for one of those watches where you can call about 5 people and it can have a location. And I was like, and then maybe like 17, 16, I'll look in an actual cell phone that will be returned back to me every day at a certain hour and not taken in your room. And so those are gonna be restrictions from talks about sex or pictures being exchanged, all those things. I was like, you have no idea of this world that you can get exposed to at such an early age before I can even talk to you about sex, or I can even talk to you about what a healthy relationship looks like. And I think those are important. And like, you're right, apps and the cyber world will introduce you to that.
Right. And what a lot of parents may not know is with sexting in particular, it's very popular in high school. But when you have a high schooler that's 18, 19 years old, and they are legally an adult, and they're exchanging pictures with a 16-year-old who's underage, it is considered a crime. Right now, they can go to prison, frankly, for exchanging or consuming child pornography. So they're really cracking down on these laws with the exchange, which it's really tricky because, again, many high schoolers are engaging in this behavior, but as I mentioned, it is a criminal act. Especially when you're an adult, and there's many adults that are legally adults that are in high school. So this is definitely a conversation that parents need to be having with their children and explaining to them, because actually many teens don't even know this either, that they can get in trouble. So this is, it's critical.
Yep, I agree. I used to work for like the prison system, and plenty of kids came in there and they were just like, well, like she was a sophomore, freshman, and I was in high school too, so I don't get it. I was like, no, statutory rape per state the line is so interesting. And I was like, all a parent has to do is say, nope, that's an adult, my child is still a child. And so you're right. So being introduced to those particular cyber worlds. And I think that is like one place that we can start. Maybe we can like talk about like what particular resources or educational tools are out there for parents to find out different sites that a child can be exposed to that they would need to have conversations with their children about. Like, do you know of any different resources or different sites?
Yeah. So a couple things. One, stopbullying.gov has some really, really good information specifically about cyberbullying. And then pacer.org also has one. And really, there's a division, well, it probably depends on where you live in the country, but different FBI agencies have divisions that are dedicated to helping the child pornography / texting world. And parents can even call up the educational line and get some information from them of what they're doing in their area, any programs. They can tell you certain new websites, because again, it's always changing, because when the website is found out about and has to shut down, then someone else is coming up with a new website to try to harm your kids. So just really being aware and keeping up to date, because these things, like you said, they change very rapidly, would be critical, just to reach out and get that process started and make sure that your child is safe. And again, like you mentioned too, there's a lot of great apps that are out there now. So
yeah, I think so. And I think being able to like have that conversation with your children or your teen as you hand them the phone. So let's say a parent has already given their teenage like sophomore, 15, 16, 17, a cell phone. And now they're looking at like the possibilities that cyber world actually can have. How can a parent go back and have a conversation with their child or children or teen about safety?
Yeah, definitely. So just as how hopefully parents are having conversations with their teens about their behavior in school and their grades and that sort of thing, it would really be, I wouldn't make it so formal, like we need to sit down and have this major talk, because most teens don't want to hear that. But when you're out and about, it could be in the car, it could be if you're at a quick stop at a restaurant, just you and your child, maybe a one-on-one conversation, just to be like, hey, by the way, here are some things that I expect of you when you are online. I'm trusting you. You're, whatever, you're in 11th grade now. You have your phone. I'm trusting you to do A, B, and C. I'm trusting you not to go to these sites. I'm trusting you not to engage in sexting behaviors. And, what are your expectations as a parent, right? You need to, most parents, again, like you said, talk about sex, talk about drugs, but we don't talk about our expectations with your child about their behavior online. So really laying that out, what you expect from them is going to be very, very important. And asking their reaction, let them talk as well. And hopefully they'll be open and have some questions too. Well, can I do this? Can I do this? And, you have to answer them and give them guidelines for their behavior.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good idea, because you're right. Like it is. Working at the university, I have really tapped into like a large percentage. I can't say this is every parent. I pray it's not every parent, but a large percentage of people whose parents don't have any talks with them when it comes to the sex talk, when it comes to like life skills talk, when it comes to like cell phone etiquette and relationship, like there's just no talking happening. And this is as technology is moving. So if this is happening as technology is moving, when they were a kid, because if I were her college students, when they were like elementary age, probably weren't even having like none of the technology cell phones we have here. I wonder like how this is going to continue impacting kids who, because parents are not having engaging conversations, they literally don't know a whole lot in the life skills and the relational aspect. And so what's your take on that? Like what can help, or what kind of things are you seeing are trends?
Yeah. And I am seeing that as a trend too. It's very scary with some older teens or teens going into college or the workforce. They don't have enough life skills to manage those stressors, because there were conversations that were not, that they didn't have with their families. And so they literally are either one or two things, going to kind of do what they want to do, maybe not the best choices, or they'll do what their peers tell them to do, because they have to get direction from somewhere. So that's why, as you mentioned, it's so critical. And there's not really a late point. I'm a very strong advocate of starting early, preschool and elementary school age. But let's say you're listening to this and you have a 16 or 17-year-old and an older teen, it's never too early or it's never too late to start. So really start somewhere, because again, there's a lot of older teens that are not really aware. And it's actually, it's a social skill too. Like, we don't think of being online as a social skill, but it really is a social skill too, that you have to teach your teen going out into the real world if they decide to date online, or whatever it is. Like, it's still a skill. You have to communicate with people online. More likely will have some sort of social media account. So really, how do you navigate that, and what are the best practices? And when you're in college and you're 19, and I know it's college, but you're 19 and there's social media now with videos out there, how does that impact your job one day, right? I mean, these are things that we need to be having these conversations with our
I agree. I see so much with my college students. Literally, I am printing things off and we're going over so many life skills, but yet they have this cell phone in their hand, or like, and they just like messaging, and they're talking about like, someone, I saw that person follow my story on Snapchat. So like, literally, here's this technology of like the latest in Snapchat, and kind of manipulating to make sure that you can see if somebody did this. Oh, and this is the age of the block. You will get blocked in a minute by our like teens and college students.
Like, every minute they come in, it's like, such a block, such a block, and I'm like, okay, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It is so funny. I have to, like, some of my clients, I literally got to be like, so are we together this week, or are they blocked? I unblocked them this week, Miss Jaketra. I'm like, okay. I said, I got to ask every week. I was like, it's getting to the point I have to ask every week.
Yeah, but that's a good point though. And I have the same thing with the teens I work with. Whatever, it's somebody, I was upset with this boy and I blocked him and this and that, which is fine online, but how does that translate in the real world when you have, well, in theory, you have an in-person relationship? I mean, it's not like you just press a button and you block them like on a cell phone, right? So how do you manage that? Because really, some of these teens are learning these conflict resolution skills that are not really practical in the real life world that we live in.
Okay.
So that's another conversation to say, sure, if they need to block someone or whatever it is, they can do that. But in real life, and these are some examples, or these are some, parents can really role play these situations to say, but in real life, let's say your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever made you mad. What do you do? Like, what do you do? Like, you can't just press the button. So it's just that we need to talk about with our youth. Prepare.
No, I agree. And because there are no interpersonal skills. And again, I blame a couple of factors with that. I blame like technology is just getting this easy access to so many things, from information to the weather to what's going on in Cuba. I mean, it has its advantages to the easy, quick access, but I don't think that the producers of all these were very aware of the relational effects that it would have, and what maturity looks like whenever you do run with technology and you forget that a person does, like you said, have to interact, have to conflict resolution, has to solve a problem, has to go into the job market face to face.
Yeah, and a lot of what the research is finding now too is that there's actually a lot of teen dating abuse that's happening because of these cell phones, which is really sad. And I don't think a lot of parents are aware of that, because there's some teens that they are so manipulative, and they are, just texting their partner every single day, every single hour. What are you doing? What do you, like the jealous type of the just verbally abusive being said. And it's really sad. And that is another conversation that needs to occur as well, like teen dating violence, which can be through cyberbullying as well. And it's happening a lot. We're seeing. So that is a conversation that needs to occur too with parents. And again, online world versus in person, because it's definitely not always the same.
No, it's not. I've seen, I remember I was in my, when in the past, I've been online date free and sober for over a year now. And so during my online dating life that I had to literally put to death. I noticed that like it would be a difference with meeting guys in person. Now I'm big on interpersonal communication. Like this is me for a living. And so I'm expecting that same level. That was not what was happening. I see that here is this ability to type but lack interpersonal skills and to lack like this real life interaction that seems to be missing if you stay so involved with the technology and there's not a balance with that. So like, how can we help parents to see that it's not just, oh, an innocent video game or a cell phone to get in touch with your kids? Like literally, like there needs to be a balance.
Yeah, they're absolutely. And again, I mean, with teens especially, it is normal for them to want to play their video games with their friends, hang out more with their friends. That's the time of their life that they want to spend more time with their peers. Very normal. However, they even call it, I think in the literature, high texters, which means that there are some teens that are texting so much. We're talking about 100 texts a day, over 3,000 texts a month, right? When you see, I mean, that's excessive, right? So when it gets into the category of the excessive, we're not saying every teen wants to use their phone every day. The majority of teens in this country have cell phones, so it's not going away. But when it gets to the point where they're not spending time with their peers in person, when they're not wanting to do anything outside of school and texting or video games and electronics, that is a real concern. And it actually sets them up for, I mean, academic issues and depression and anxiety and all these other things, because like you said, you sort of resort into this unrealistic sort of fantasy world, and you're closing out reality. Like, leave the house, you know, or have people over, or you know, whatever it is. But it's really a concern when it gets to that level, and parents definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. I think that is the problem. So again, we can't stop technology, it's going. But I think I think this is where it comes, I believe in this, I really believe in this team effort. And this is where it comes that whoever is making like the different advances needs to get a psychologist or clinicians or teachers involved to say, hey, yes, we're going to move with this, but also don't forget these particular important points when it comes to like technology advancing and what it might do. And so I think that's the issue. And then let's talk about like Dr. Hammond, I want to talk about like the particular like emojis to the language of like now with technology and how we're not even using complete sentences. Like we're not even talking.
I have heard some concerns. I am not an English, professor or teacher, but I have heard some concerns. Teachers that are like, what is this? Like you wrote an essay in basically texting terms. Yes, it's a little scary. We're moving a little away from complete sentences and that sort of thing, which is fine, as you mentioned, of course, for texting. But again, it's really about helping your child transition. So again, you can have your cell phone and be online and social media, but like in your English class or in real life, or when you're applying for a job or real life things, you cannot do this over here, right? So like helping to separate the two is really going to be critical going forward to help them move into their adult years. Critical.
And I think that's the problem. Like, I think it's so, because it's so acceptable socially. If you're in high school, if you're in middle school, it's very socially acceptable. Emojis to all the language, like literally they know exactly what the sentence just said and it didn't say anything. And so, but you're right, like, but talk to that person one-on-one. They're going to be like, I'm sorry, what? Like, it's so like they can't even articulate their emotions. They're having trouble articulating their needs for classes or their needs for concerns that they may have with peers. Like you can't even get a complete thought out. And I think that there lies the problem.
Yeah, we have to continue communication skills. I mean, we should not be lessening our conversations about that just because of social media. And as you mentioned before, I think there's I don't want to sound anti-technology here. There's great benefits to technology.
Yeah.
But we also have to continue these conversations about how to act appropriately, because I think that we've just lost that. I feel like we just I don't know, as a society, we sort of lost that. I mean, as a kid, like we remember you talk about what to do in your classroom and how to go on a job interview, you know, all these things like in person, how you act. And then cell phones sort of took over and we stopped having these conversations and interact in person with people.
Yep. Yep, I agree. So I'm with you. Like, no one's saying like no technology or anything like that, because it's moving. It's going to advance. I'm not like preaching no, but I'm with you. What I am preaching is, as a person who's a clinician who later is get a person, I work with people on job skills. I work with people on just interpersonal, relational things. I work with people just on trying to articulate. I had a young man in my office today, a couple came, and he literally was like, I'm good to everything. And I was like, what? And then so he later says to me, like, he was like, well, I'm not mad, but I'm not mad, but I'm good. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't happen. I don't know what that is, but that. And so so I'm like sitting there talking like, yeah, we're not getting anywhere. And I interpret stuff for a living when it comes to what you're trying to say. And I was like, you really need to work on your emotions and articulating what you're trying to say. And I was like, because I'm good? No.
Exactly.
And
yeah, and I was the how to articulate your emotions, because that, gosh, it's so critical. I think my first book, I mean, that was my whole point, the Practical Guide to Raising Emotionally Healthy Children. I really wanted to stress to parents how important teaching your kids to be emotionally healthy can have like a lifelong effect. Because as you mentioned, if that is, I feel like it's a gift, honestly. If you can talk to your children and help them to be emotionally healthy and manage their emotions, that's huge. I mean, it helps them in their relationships. It helps them academically. It helps them in their job. It helps them in life. It helps you how to deal with stressors and the bumps in the road that comes with life. When you can manage your emotions and know how to express that, that is like a huge key skill. So really to give that, I say it's a gift to give that to a child and to give that to a teen. You are, I mean, really helping them in life. I know so many times that we focus, or the school system, which is not my, I've said this many times, but it's not my favorite thing to solely focus on the academics, because the social emotional piece is so important. But even if your child's not getting that at school and you provide that at home and help them to understand how to function emotionally and socially, you're giving them a gift for life, because that is boils down to a lot of adults that struggle is dealing with their emotion in some fashion or another, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's anger issues, whether someone's in prison or in jail for some kind of violent act, whether they can't get along with their supervisor, they're doing something inappropriate with their spouse. I mean, all of these things really boil down to start with managing your emotions.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And then it didn't help when they threw all that technology. So now you get to text somebody and you get to like curse them out.
Exactly.
5 emojis and a symbol, and then block them.
Yeah.
so now you didn't. So now not only did you not articulate your emotions, but you also did not handle the interpersonal side to know that you can get your needs met if you begin communicating, or you can at least reach a healthy type of conversation inside of conflict. Yes. But because of like some stuff that how technology moves, like again, you can go through that whole curse them out in a certain type of like symbol and like the emojis, and then you can block them. So we didn't get anywhere. None. We got probably a person who moves on to a new relationship and the same thing happens again.
Yes. I heard that story many times with my fun and exciting teens. But then some teens realize, well, wait a second, now I didn't have any closure because I'm wondering what they thought, and I blocked them and I don't know their response. I'm like, well, so those are just things to really keep having these conversations with children. And another thing I really wanted to bring up is that many parents I've met before. So again, there's no magical age of when to let your child have social media access. But if they're older and they're smart and wise, which many children are and teens, if you completely ban all social media access, they probably have some accounts that you don't know about anyhow. So you really need to have these conversations and not expect that children are not at all on social media, because the majority of children that I've met, whether or not they're allowed, they have some sort of social media. Instead, think of it more as having the social media accounts, but I mean, checking in and making sure they're safe and making sure they understand the rules, making sure they understand your expectations, because it's way easier for them to, well, for you to manage it that way than them to have their secret account.
So kind of speaking of that, what do you think about, what are your thoughts about like people who are like, oh, I'm my daughter's or my son's Facebook friend? And so like, what do you think about that?
It's interesting. I have two categories of families that I've seen with that. One is, which I agree with, there are some parents I've met, they are their child's friend or their connection or whatever, social media platform they're on, but they know, hey, I'm on there just to make sure you're safe. And they're not really meddling into their conversations, making a bunch of comments, embarrassing their child, which a lot of times does work. Then I've had the parents that are a part of their child's social media, but they are making comments or saying all these things, which is like, have those conversations offline. Don't publicly, or not publicly, but don't on your child's page say, I can't believe you said that. I did this. Okay, once you start doing that, they're going to go set up a secret account. They are. Because, okay, everything I say, mom has to monitor it or dad has to monitor it. So if you must be on there to be on there, but have the conversations about what's appropriate offline, and try not to really get into constantly responding and constantly commenting, because most teens don't want their parents to do that. And if you do that too much, like I said, they kind of scoot into a
Yeah, I see it often. I see it like more with well, I don't know how long they've been Facebook friends, but like some adults. And so like I've seen where I'm like, oh, they have the same last name. That's the whole family. And so what came to my thoughts about that was, man, we can, and I was so guilty of this too. I started working on this, that we can literally be Facebook friends with our aunts, our uncles, our cousins, and everybody, and past teachers, and never ever pick up a phone or go visit them or have lunch or anything with them.
That's true.
And so, and I think like at some point it became like, oh yes, I can connect with my old classmates and I can connect with these family members. But I think like that somewhere became, oh, that's enough. And I think that's the part of, I'm like, well, how can we bring that back and incorporate real life situations and use this technology to our advantage?
Yeah, and I think that is a really good conversation to have with children and teens as well, is just because you're connected. I mean, for some kids, the number of likes they get defines them, which we know is kind of silly. But the number of likes you have, the number of friends you have, and you have, 2,000, and you have really hard to be really close and intimate with 2,000 people, of course, right? So it's not about, like, a lot of teens are caught up with these numbers. They're caught up with how many connections you have, how many likes did you get, how many people said this, how many people comment. Like, they are sitting there and they're comparing this, and like I said, it's just this alternative universe almost. And it's like, in the real world, it doesn't matter if you had 3 likes or if you had 30 or 300 likes. It doesn't really help you necessarily in life. Like you said, if you were to say, hey man, I want to hang out with my friend today, right? That's a different situation. You can connect in a different way with them when you see them in person.
Yep. And then what's crazy is, I'm going to use the word crazy. I often don't use that word, but I'm going to use this based on the mindset, the perspective that happens. Then what's crazy is then you have people like the celebrities coming on being like, that they're like, bashing or trying to defend a comment that they've written by being like, well, you're only seeing one glimpse of that person. You're only seeing, that's not this full story. And I'm like, it's so much happening when it comes to exposure and the level of like interpersonal skills or relational skills that's not happening as a result of like post likes comment sections, like you said, like if you just go and read that. And I think it's just like, it's just not helping interpersonally. It's not helping relationally. It's not.
No, it certainly doesn't. I mean, it just to have the idea that that's how life works when it doesn't, especially when you're in middle school. It's a really hard time to be in middle school, is problematic in itself. And what happens too is, again, I mean, many teens, middle schoolers, teenagers are creating these fake accounts. So when you have star 1257, as a username with no picture, you have no idea who it is. So what'll happen is people will go on there and they'll start cyberbullying, and they'll say all sorts of, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, and you have these names, you have no idea who it is. But luckily for parents, what some parents have been successful at is to talk to the school in some cases. And sometimes they can track the person down, and sometimes they can't if it gets to that level. But that's something for parents also to think about if it starts to cross the line. I mean, it's really, really inappropriate. I know I've had, some families that had to get school intervention for some things that were going on online. So,
yeah, I once had a client, a gay male, who was online dating, and in the midst of online dating, met 3 guys. And so he later chose one guy to be with, but he was involved with one. Well, out of those 3, like, once he got his boyfriend, he literally, like, someone started like cyberbullying his boyfriend and him. And they would go the distance of having so many fake numbers. Like, I was talking to him about like safety and what measures to go next, because at this point I was like, look, we may need you a victim's assistance. His boyfriend went to Emory. And so we're having to figure out all these particular things because someone's changing numbers and they're literally cyberbullying. But the initial start was online dating through the cyber world that later went to phone calls. And now we're having to get school officials involved and parents involved.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, those cases are happening more and more. But what I want to remind parents of is you really, really want to act early. You really want to monitor how your child is doing. As you mentioned, in extreme cases, there are children and teens that are taking their lives because of the bullying that is happening to them, whether in school, whether online, a combination. There are a lot of warning signs. And when you see those signs, when you see your child being depressed, when you see your child starting to, their grades are getting worse in school, or they're having sleep problems, eating issues, they're not doing what they used to do for fun. I mean, there's so many things they're talking about wanting to hurt themselves. Make sure to get help for them early, that you can save their life. And I also stress that parents really need to talk to their kids about how to help their friends, because a lot of teens are not telling their parents about bullying, but they will tell a friend. So as a friend, what do you do if as a friend, if your friend is saying, somebody's saying this online and this and that, how do you help them? These are conversations that we need to continue to have with our youth.
Yep. It's so much. Oh my goodness. Like, I really hope that, like, in this conversation, that parents really truly are, like, now, no matter what age their kid is, no matter how long ago they gave them the phone, but wanting to just be brave and just have a conversation. I love what you said about, like, role playing is always excellent. Just asking different questions. I think one other thing is, like, I know passwords are, like, I know I had a Nokia and all you can do is lock the screen. There was no passcode like a few years ago. And now it's like, nope, you can have a whole code, a whole shape, a whole handprint, a whole voice. You can have so much to it. So I think even talking about, like, the security of a phone and the code when it comes to parental access and engaging them inside of that world.
Yeah, and reminding them not to share their passcodes with other people to their phones. I know that, well, back in my day, a long time ago, when I was in middle school, it was pretty cool if you had a friend, you would share your locker combination. Like, that was the cool thing to do. because they would just put like a note in there for you or something. It was weird. But that was a cool thing, which, I mean, looking back is pretty innocent, right? They go in there to put a cool note in there, whatever. But now kids are sharing their cell phones, which is problematic, their cell phone passwords, because there's a lot of personal information that are on these phones. I've had cases where teens have used someone else, anyway, they figure out their password, use someone else's phone to say all sorts of things on social media, things that like are really horrendous under someone else's name. Also, I mean, all sorts of negative things can happen. And again, with the teen dating world, which is happening right now, is there are abusive teenagers that are bullying their partner to say, you better give me your password. I want to see all your text messages. I don't trust you. Things that are really problematic, and it's abusive to do that. So this is a conversation, again, really about the passwords, not sharing them, whether it's your partner, whether it's your friend or whomever. That is, like you said, a secure place. And these cell phones now have more information than our computers, I feel like. There's so much on there.
Based on your memory, it is. Yeah, based on mine is terrible because I have a very low memory, but based on your memory, you can keep the sky's the limit by this point.
Yes.
So I agree. So Dr. Hammond, like as we close up, what advice or any that we haven't discussed would you give like parents, and that we haven't discussed that we might have not talked about when it comes to like this new age technology and just interpersonally, all that good jazz?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice that I want to leave people with is do not assume that your child or teen knows how to behave online. Do not assume that your child or teen knows what your values are as a family. Don't assume they know what to do in a lot of different situations, especially my lovely middle schoolers. They really honestly don't. And if they do think they know what to do, it's probably coming from another 11, 12, 13-year-old that sometimes has a lot of misinformation for them. So instead, be the adult and be the parent to say, you know what, in this situation, you need to do this. In this situation, be very concrete and age appropriate, and really teach them how to approach this online world and this changing, like I said, changing technology, and really be up to date, keep up to date with, a lot is changing, but keep up to date with what is going on.
Yeah, this has been so good. Like I'm like, man, I can go on and on and on. Because it's so interesting, like literally from like at the college level, like I've been there like 4 years and I swear I'm just like, what? So, and they're like, I mean, I literally went in with a certain mindset of an expectation, like, yeah, they're gonna come in, but no, my goodness.
It's different.
So, it is. And I'm like, yeah, there's something up with this. And I'm gonna blame it on the factor of environment and family dynamic. But I'm also gonna blame it on technology.
Yes.
And so, Dr. Hammond, how can people get your book that you mentioned, the first one, and I know there's a second one, follow the show, and just kind of get in touch with you afterwards?
Yeah, so the information, the second book was ADHD Explained, What Every Parent Needs to Know, which was just published this year. But if you want more information about the book, I would love to reach out. I love to connect with people on social media. It's drnekeshiahammond.com, which is DRNEKESHIA Hammond.com.
Yes, I thank you so much. Like, it's been such a delight. And so definitely, as always, like, if something comes up in the future, I'll definitely bring you on. I think you're so knowledgeable in this field. And so good luck with everything in the book selling. And congratulations definitely again on the show. Is there a particular site that they can go on and watch that, or how is that viewed?
Yeah. So right now the show is airing in, let's see, Tampa, DC, and there's another place, New Mexico. But you can also watch it online. So it's drhammondshow.com, and they'll have all the episodes there that you can watch, where I interview different parenting experts in a lot of different areas.
That's so awesome. I'm so excited for you. That's that's amazing.
Thank you.
So good. So thank you so much again for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so SRN, Dr. Hammond and I just gave so much information on the technology and really having boundaries set, talking to your children, your teens, your young adults about like phone etiquette to values to so many things, to understanding that cyberbullying is so real. And so it's not too late, parents. It is not too late. If you gave your child, teen, young adult a phone 5 years ago, it's okay. Have a conversation with them. Don't assume that they are maturely able or to handle a phone or technology or the different advancements that are happening. And if you are not knowledgeable about it, please go and find different resources, links, or reach back out to Dr. Hammond, or I can be reached at jabryant1913@gmail.com. My website is www.b3mentalperformances.com. Follow me on Twitter at Jaketra B, and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Jaketra Bryant, and definitely find out any resources or ask us questions. We'll be glad to follow up with you. If you want to have these conversations, you've already given your child technology, but yet you have found some of these particular concerns really eye-opening. And so join me next week as I continue this series of talking about technology and cell phones and parenting and just keeping our relational and interpersonal skills going and with Family Mix Mondays. And I'm your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Get at me for beats, y'all.